up, guys? Today we're out in nature. You can hear all the bugs and the birds and everything. Wanted to get out here and get some fresh air. So I wanted to just give you my thoughts about my own personal life. I feel like I'm always giving motivational advice and just advice in general, and I think I'm going to do that in this video, but I'm going to try and get a little bit more personal than I usually do. Share some of my stories, because why not? I've been thinking a lot recently, along this journey of self-improvement. I guess you could call it a journey, because I think it's never ending. I really don't think as human beings we're ever really going to be finished products. So there's this idea in psychology that was created by Abraham Maslow, I believe his name is, and you might have heard of it. It's a popular tier list in like a pyramid sense. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I believe it's called. And what this theory shows is that once all of our basic needs are met, such as we have enough food, water to survive, we have a nice house or a place to stay, and we have decent relationships, and we're doing work that's fulfilling. Once we have all of these set out, food and water is the basic thing, then it goes up to relationships, then it goes up to fulfillment and work, etc., etc., right? And then at the top, there's this concept called self-actualization. When I first heard about this, I thought about the concept of enlightenment, which, in my eyes, spiritual enlightenment has seemed, from studying the few spiritually enlightened beings that I came across, it seems like enlightenment is just this state of bliss where nothing in life really, I don't want to say bothers you anymore, but it's kind of like a state of bliss. And so anything negative, anything that we perceive as negative that does happen, we don't take it so personally, and we completely have disconnected from our sense of selves, right? But this concept of self-actualization reminded me of enlightenment. I'm like, once you reach the self-actualized state, your life is complete. Like, all your relationships are good, your work is fulfilling, you have all your needs met. And then I thought to myself, wait, self-actualization can't be a completely finished state, because things happen. Maybe you lose your job, maybe the romantic relationship doesn't work out, you get divorced, your relationship partly leaves you, it just doesn't work out. Maybe you even struggle with being something like homeless for a little while. You don't have your basic needs met. So I think self-actualization, I've come to realize, is this state of, I don't want to say bliss as though, bliss like I perceive enlightenment, but it's general fulfillment. And so you could wake up every day and feel content with your life, right? But I feel like in life, this comes in waves, right? You can't be self-actualized 24/7. Just like I always say, you can't be happy 24/7. Emotions are fleeting; they're not permanent. Now, I think you can be, content for your life in general, and I think that's what self-actualization is getting at. But it's not finished, right? Things happen, and then self-actualization is stages in your life, right? For the next year, you might wake up feeling content every day, and then there's a point in your life where you won't feel that content. And so my point being is that even though self-improvement is, I believe, necessary for a flourishing life, because we can always be improved upon, and we all have flaws that we can work on, and so we work better in relationships and work better with ourselves and know ourselves better, right? So all these self-improvement concepts are essential, but it's understanding that it is a never-ending journey, right? But it's worth it. And so far along my 5 to 6 year journey, I think it's worth it. I mean, I went from completely depressed, socially anxious, super unconfident, to quite the opposite. And it took time. I mean, it took time to develop that, but it was time well spent, because now since I am more socially just able to socialize with people, I've now, made new connections, and I'm able to network people, and I, have my own podcast. I'm able to have the confidence to sit in front of this camera and make this. I mean, you took me a few years ago. I used to make videos, but I never posted them because, I was afraid of what people would think. The second you put yourself out there in any sort of facet or open up at all about what you believe about the world or yourself or anything, you open yourself up to the positivity that, I get tons of positive comments, but you also open up yourself to the negativity, the people that don't agree with you, the people that think you're stupid, right? And I don't think anybody's ever going, I believe not everybody is going to like you. Not everyone's going to like me, not everyone's going to like you. It's just the reality. It's human nature. I might like someone else over someone else because of the way someone acts, right? And someone else might perceive the person that I don't really like as the way they act, but they like the way they act, right? So it's this cool phenomenon because we get to pick who we spend our time with, generally speaking. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And, once we get to a certain point on our journey of making our lives better, I think sometimes there comes a crossroads where you've turned your life around and you've got to this point and you're kind of like, alright, well, now what? It's like, is this enough? And that's something I struggled with for a very long time, is feeling like I was doing enough. I mean, I think especially when you first get into trying to make your life a better place, mentally, physically, spiritually, in all aspects. For me, at least, there came this mental struggle of, I want to get these 5 things done today, and if I didn't get all 5 of them done, then I wouldn't feel good enough, and I wouldn't feel like I completed my goals for the day, and there was something wrong with me, right? But I think we have to understand that we're human beings, and we're not perfect, and sometimes, you might have a to-do list of 5 things, and you might only get 3 done today. Hell, you might only get 1. You might not accomplish anything that day. But I think that's okay. I think it's so easy to get 4 out of the 5 things done, or we get none done because we're in a really bad mood that day, and we beat ourselves up about it. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, and we never will be good enough. But I think we are separate from our work and even, just trying to improve our life. If you don't have a good day, that's okay. I mean, I'm starting to become a coach, a mindset coach and a self-development coach, and I'll openly say, I'm not perfect. Sure, I've made tons of progress over the past 5-6 years, but I'm not a perfect person. I'm still learning every single day. And, like I said, I think it's a never-ending journey, but it's a good one. And I think it's important to not beat ourselves up because of a mistake we made 5 years ago or a mistake we made today. I mean, the moment we let go is the moment we allow ourselves to be free and actually improve, right? I think if we're so structured and so I need to get all this done in one day to the point of just I don't feel good enough if I don't, we're holding ourselves back. And is that really self-improvement if you're mentally holding yourself back and you're, I like to think about it as it's so much better to improve yourself out of love rather than out of hate. And I'll give you a basic example of this. Maybe you're a little bit overweight, or maybe you're a little bit skinny. You think you're too fat, you think you're too skinny, whatever, right? In my case, when I first started getting into the gym, I thought I was too skinny. And so sometimes when you start self-development, you come from the standpoint of, I need to go to the gym, I need to lose weight, or I need to gain muscle and not be skinny anymore because I hate myself. I hate the way I look. My life sucks. Everything about me just sucks, right? And I think when we stem self-improvement and self-development from this standpoint, it's always going to hold us back because, we might look better and have a great physique. I mean, I knew a guy who was, pretty insecure, and he ended up over the next year or two getting an incredible physique, right? Guy looks absolutely incredible right now. He used to be super skinny. And I haven't talked to him recently, but in the time that I did, even after he gained a great physique, he was still mentally very insecure, right? And so I think it goes to show, you'd hear all the birds, I think it goes to show that just improving out of hate doesn't work. Whereas on the flip side, if you say to yourself, okay, maybe I don't like the way I look, right? And that it's okay. It's okay to not like the way you look. But if you come from the standpoint instead of, I want to go to the gym, I want to gain muscle, I want to lose weight because I love myself and I want nothing but the best for my body and my mind. Now that's the key. And I think that's the difference in the shift that literally makes all the difference. Because hate in our world seems to be stronger than love. I mean, our thoughts are primarily negative throughout our days. We're always looking at the worst possible outcome, or we're anxious about the event we have to attend in a week from now, or that conversation we have to have with that person, right? And this think to yourself, how often does this negativity actually serve you? I mean, how many situations do you think about for 2 hours straight and overthink about it? And one of the outcomes that you overthink about is actually like, okay, yes, that's fine, that's the answer, right? Usually, I know that doesn't happen for me. It's, if I sit there for 2 hours overthinking about it, it gets me nowhere. And then I eventually, become conscious enough to realize, like, wait, what am I doing? And then you're able to break out of it. Sometimes you're not. Right? I think sometimes you just have to go through it. Sometimes a certain thing happens, and we feel anger or sadness, and we just have to feel it. Sometimes there's no using meditation to escape it. Sometimes you can't go for a walk and it's going to make it better. A lot of times it will. But I think there's also times where it won't. And whatever event happened, whatever conversation you had that ruined your mood or changed a life circumstance or changed your life, you have to feel that. Because if we avoid our feelings, we're also avoiding ourselves. And we are separate from our feelings. The feelings are still, they're an energy, they're still present, flowing throughout our body and our minds, right? They're in our field of physical and mental space, even though the physical space, you can't really see it. But it's there. And if we neglect it, we neglect those feelings of hurt, trauma, sadness, anger, then they get buried. They get buried deep in our minds. We get to a point where we don't really think about it anymore. But I think it still affects us, right? I mean, I think the most classic example of this is like most of our childhood experiences affect who we are today, right? If I grew up and from ages 5 to 15, my parents always told me I wasn't good enough, that I was stupid, etc., etc., I would start to believe this. And now, being 19 years old, about to turn 20. I may become conscious of it. Oh yeah, my parents are the reason why I don't feel like I'm good enough. Or, what I think most of the time happens is, we don't think we're good enough and we don't know why. Right? It's just, I'm 19, 20 years old right now, and my life sucks and I don't feel good enough. You never really pinpoint the reason why you don't feel good enough. And I think an exercise you can do to figure out the root cause of this, so then you can resolve these issues and these past traumas, is to look back in your childhood. It might not even be 15 years ago in your childhood, or maybe you're 30, 40 years old. It might not even be 20, 30 years ago, right? This thing could have happened a month ago, and it still affects you now. It's like, I think there's so many factors at play in our minds. This guy's got a dirt bike. Hell yeah. Alright, so there's so many factors that play out in our life and experiences that we have that affect us that we aren't really aware of. But it's important to become aware of this, because then, we can make our situations better and understand why you don't feel good enough. So it's like, alright, well, my parents made me feel like I'm not good enough. Maybe, you need to have a conversation with them. Maybe you need to distance yourself from them. Whatever the situation is, right? I think it's really easy to forget or try not to think about the reasons why our life isn't good. I think especially here in America, and I'm sure in other cultures around the world too, so many of us have adapted You know, they call it the victim mentality of, you know, I'm not in control of my life. You know, this person said this to me, that's why I didn't go after my dreams. I mean, the government did this, and it's all we always make excuses, right? And we always say, no, I can't. I can't. Oh, I would have, but I mean, I would have loved to, but, and it's just all these excuses why we couldn't do what we were supposed to do, or what we just should do for ourselves, or, you know, showing up in other people's lives too. And this is tough sometimes. I mean, it is really difficult to look into your past and figure out why your life is the way it is. And maybe it is Johnny's fault, maybe it is Julie's, maybe it's your parents' fault, maybe it's partly their fault, because this is the thing. There's a lot of things that happen now, all of our lives, that happen, and it might not necessarily be a consequence of our actions. It might not be our fault. But even if it isn't our fault, it's still our responsibility to make things better, because if we don't make it better, I mean, who is? I mean, I think we need to understand that most of the time, in most of our lives, generally speaking, nobody is coming to save us. Nobody is coming to save you. In your person, like, you can go on YouTube and, you know, you can watch videos, right? And they can 100% help you, like they did for me and continue to do. But in your personal life, most of the time, no one's going to save you. Alright, so you have to be your own savior. You have to save yourself, because nobody else will. And you might think this might just add to the victim mentality of everyone's out to get me, no one's going to help me, I'm all on my own. But there's another way of looking at this. Yes, I'm on my own right now, but I can still do great things. And I still do have opportunities. And if I got up just an hour earlier, you know, maybe I could go to the gym before I have to go to my shitty job, and maybe it'll make the day a little bit better. I've come to realize that there's always something we can do. Right? We don't always choose the things that happen to us in the life circumstances sometimes. We can always choose how we view it. Right? I think there's like a quote from Marcus Aurelius, or some Greek philosopher, whoever it was, about how, you know, they were talking about a man in this quote, but men, women, anyone applies to this. But it was along the lines of, you know, no matter what happens to a man, his right to choose how he thinks about the situation is never taken away. You can take it away from yourself, but nobody else can take that away from you. I mean, you could be in the worst possible situation ever and still have a positive mindset. I mean, let's take the example of somebody who's homeless. I mean, I'm sure you've even seen this in your own personal life sometime, or you can understand the concept of it at least, or you've heard about it from somewhere else. You know, there's some people that are homeless, and they're miserable, and, you know, they're struggling every day to make any money to buy food, and et cetera, and this is understandable. Of course, you know, I've never been homeless. I can't, you know, speak on, oh, they should just be positive. I can't say that, right? But this is the example I'm giving you. There's somebody who's homeless who's incredibly miserable and, you know, just curses at everyone who walks by, for example. And then there's those people who are homeless that I've encountered that have a smile on their face, and they still have a positive mindset, and they're still trying. And we can all sit here and say, oh, my life is absolutely horrible. Somebody has it worse. And when I say that, of course, just thinking of, oh yeah, someone else in the world has it worse than I do, that doesn't eradicate your problems, of course, right? You know, if I have 10 things that are going wrong in my life and I just think to myself, yeah, but someone has it worse than me, you know, that's not going to make my life better, right? It could boost you a little bit of gratitude, and that can get you a step in the right direction, but that's not going to solve your problems, of course not. But the purpose of this example is that we get to choose how we don't always choose how we feel, or maybe we do. Sometimes, I don't think sometimes we choose the feelings that come out of us instantly because of something someone says, or a situation that happens. But if we can take a moment of awareness after something happens, then we can choose to change it around. Like, someone can say something to me, and I can choose, or most of the time it's not choosing, you just react out of anger, whether you hit them back, or you say something rude back, or I think all of us have an opportunity in that moment to think to ourselves, wait, okay, this person said this, maybe it does offend me a little bit, but I don't need to let it ruin my day. I don't need to feel like crap. I don't need to react with anger back to them. I can react with kindness, right? And we have this choice. I think the victim mentality has plagued us so much that so many of us just believe we have no control over our lives, but we do. And of course, some people are more fortunate than others, and there's some opportunities, and there may be some cases and situations in your life now that you can't change for the moment, right? But even in those situations, you can still choose how you view it. And you can choose your perspective, and you can change your perspective. I mean, this is the beautiful thing about being human. We think we're not in control of our lives and we can't control anything, but we can. I mean, I'm moving my hand right now, right? Of course, some people don't have an arm to do this. Some people can't do this. But, majority of us, we have our body's generally working well, right? And I can stand up if I want to. I could sit down. I could go walk. There's a lake in front of me. If I really wanted to, I could go jump in there, right? I'm not going to, but I could. And so I want you to ask yourself, how many things could you do today, right now, or in the next day, in the next week, that you've just been putting off? Or just things that could make your life better. You just chose not to look and figure out what you have to do for yourself. So oftentimes we blame everyone else for the situation we're in. And we alleviate control and we put the responsibility on everyone else, but the fact of the matter is it is our responsibility. Nobody is coming to save us. We have to fix ourselves. And maybe this is a depressing thought to you. I mean, you're like, oh, I have to fix myself. You do. But I don't think it has to be a journey filled with hate. I think it can be a journey filled with love, gratitude. And if you don't feel that right now, that's okay, because at one point I absolutely did not. But I do feel it now. Thanks for watching.